Good morning, everybody. First of all, I apologize for not being there in person. We have a conflict with Peanut Field Day here in Mariana, so I'm attending the field day, and so I'll be giving this talk virtually, where I'll be talking about I'll provide an update on the 4Rs project. I guess some of you are already aware of the 4Rs project, where we use the Miller High Buoy. And we demonstrate and do some research on banding liquid nitrogen in corn. And the 4Rs project has two different components, and I'll talk about those when I proceed with my slides. Okay. All right. So I'll start with that. Most of us are already aware of the recent state legislature in the last few years. Our Florida outstanding springs, most of them are nitrogen impaired. So for us, in the basin areas in North Florida, nitrogen management is the elephant in the room, and we have been given targets to reduce our nitrogen inputs to kind of meet the TMDLs, which is total maximum daily loads, to a certain level, and that level is different for different basins. But we have a target that we are supposed to reach in the given span of 20 years for each BMAP. Now, I just want to just share, just to bring to our attention that on your screen, you are seeing different charts from basins all the way in Florida Panhandle, from Jackson Blue Springs to Wassisa in Jefferson County, and then to Lower Suwannee in Suwannee Valley. If you can look at the orange section of the pie, that's the nitrogen load contribution from farm fertilizer. And for different basins, basically farm fertilizer is one of the major contributors. So we have a target now that we as IFAS faculty and county extension faculties and teams of researchers, and along with our stakeholders, we have to work on reducing this input. Now, when we talk about the reduction of inputs, there are two different ways to look at it. The end goal for us is to reduce the total maximum daily loads, TMDLs, for each BMAPs, and for most of them, that target is to reduce that TMDL to about 0.35 milligrams per liter, which is 0.35 ppms of nitrates, and that we have to achieve to reduce our nitrate loads to this level in the next 20 years, or 20 years starting from the day the BMAP was established. But this number of 0.35 is not standard for all BMAPs. There are certain BMAPs where the number is different. And we don't have to achieve that, in one go. There is an incremental step, and at the bottom section of the slide is the percentage or the stepwise incremental, goals that we have to achieve in increments of 5 years. But the example that I have in the bottom section of the slide is for Suwannee River BMAP, and for us, the target that we need to achieve is about 4 million pounds of nitrogen per year, and we have to reduce this much amount of nitrogen in 20 years. So I kind of set the stage for all of us to understand that, yes, the elephant in the room for us is to reduce nitrogen input so that we can meet first, achieve the TMDL in our Florida waters to about 0.35 ppm, and also to achieve that, the target for us is to reduce the pounds of nitrogen that we apply on our farms. Now then, the question when it comes to 4Rs project is that how are we using Miller High Buoy on corn, to achieve those TMDLs? So if you look at the chart on your right-hand side, this is the corn nitrogen uptake chart. And what we figured out is that there are two main sections during the growth period of corn where we can achieve better efficiency, and we can achieve nitrogen reduction or we can reduce nitrogen leaching down the soil profile, given our soils are sandy soils. So if you look at the first section, when corn is very small, and I have highlighted those sections with this red rectangles. So corn is small. It's planted on 30-inch row spacing. Most of the corn in Swanee Valley is at 30-inch. Corn planted in Florida Panhandle is at 36 inches. But try to imagine that your roots are small, and we apply nitrogen. Roots do not cover the inter-row space, and any nitrogen that is applied as a starter or is applied when corn is very small as your first application, and if we encounter any heavy irrigation or a rainfall event, which we commonly do, that nitrogen is liable to leach. And whatever nitrogen is within those 30-inch row spacing. So the first phase for us to improve our efficiency is this phase, where the roots are small and we can better you apply nitrogen in a more efficient way. The second section is, look at the purple section at the end of this graph, where now the corn is in the reproductive stage. Most of the nitrogen within the plants, which are in the leaves and other vegetative tissues, now has started translocating to our reproductive parts, which are corn cobs, right? So now most of the nitrogen is translocating, but just a little bit of nitrogen is still being uptaken from the soil. But as a measure of insurance, we do apply, or our growers tend to apply a late application of nitrogen. So now imagine a scenario where your plant is not uptaking a huge amount or huge chunk of nitrogen, but the nitrogen is still in the soil. So that is another time frame where we can achieve some efficiency, and that's what I'll be talking about. That how we are trying to achieve on working on corn in two different time phases, time pieces to improve nitrogen efficiency. Now, using efficient methods such as banding of nitrogen with high boy, what we anticipate is that we can improve our efficiency by 20%. So I'll not go into the details of the calculations, but just by doing some basic calculations on the right-hand side, if you see for 2021, our acreage of corn, grain corn and silage corn, is about 90,000 acres. And typically, farmers usually apply about 350 pounds, some of them even more than that. But if we just go by 350 pounds of nitrogen per acre, that gives us this huge number of about 32 million pounds of nitrogen that's applied on corn in Florida. So if we anticipate that we can anticipate a 20% reduction by being more efficient, that means that if a grower is applying about 350 pounds of nitrogen, and if we anticipate 20% reduction, we can reduce 70 pounds of nitrogen per acre, which now gives us a savings or reduction of 6.3 million pounds of nitrogen, which is way more, and I cannot say that this is way more than the 4.2 million pounds of nitrogen reduction. That's our target goal for Swanee Valley, because that's only for Swanee Valley region. This is for the state of Florida. But the number that just by having a 20% improvement or increase in efficiency, we can reduce nitrogen by 6.3 million pounds only for corn. And there are other high nitrogen demanding crops as well. So I just did this calculation to kind of, bring everybody's attention that, I'm just quoting 20% reduction. Let's not even talk about 20%. Even if we are able to achieve 10% reduction, it would still be 3 million pounds of nitrogen reduction only for corn. And we are not even talking about vegetables and not even talking about cotton in the state of Florida. So when we use Miller High Boy, I want to show a video that how we are able to achieve that efficiency. And this is this was the Y dropping. And if you look at the picture on your right, this is the precise application of liquid nitrogen, which is applied right at about 2 inches away from the plant. So we cannot be more efficient than this banding application. Now, some of now this was the video to show you all that when go on a farm and ban liquid nitrogen on corn, just because of this high clearance, high boy, we are able to run over corn and without damaging corn, without bending corn stalks, and in one go we are able to apply liquid nitrogen on 23 rows at one time. Now, one section of, or one part of the 4 Hours project is extension side, where so far in the last 3 years, we have been able to demonstrate banding of liquid nitrogen using high boy on a total of 922 acres. But when this project was started, the way the project was, run on the ground was that we would go at a farm and we would apply liquid nitrogen based on how the farmer suggested us, or the rates that he would want us to apply. And there was no actual apples to apples or oranges to oranges comparison to compare grower practice versus banded application. But last year we had one farm where the grower was so interested in comparing it, and he split his pivot into 2 halves and he applied nitrogen based on his regimen, and we applied nitrogen using the high boy for corn production under the same pivot. And this graph, the gray bars on this graph are the corn yields from banding and from fertigation side of the pivot, where we did not see any yield difference. The green bars, however, are the total nitrogen used, and these numbers are in kilograms per hectare, but if we convert them into pounds, we were able to produce the same yield by reducing 30 pounds of nitrogen. And this 30-pound reduction was not suggested by us. This was suggested to us by the grower. So it was his confidence, just by looking at how the high boy works and how precisely it's applying nitrogen. These numbers were suggested by the growers for us to apply. And he was very happy with the 30-pound reduction of nitrogen without any yield loss. Now, starting from this year, what we have done is we have added another component to the application. So this year we were on 6 farms or 6 fields, and the first step that we did was we ran various MSP3, which is state-of-the-art equipment to map your fields and to capture soil variability. So all these dots that you are seeing on the map, these different colors of dot represent different soil electrical conductivity. The darker the dot on the map means higher electrical conductivity, which means better soil or heavier texture soil. And the lighter the dot means the sandier the soil is within the field. The blue line represents the split, and the top portion of the field was where we applied nitrogen using high boy as banding. And the section on the bottom part of this slide in this field was where the grower applied nitrogen using the pivot. So what we are now doing is that we are collecting data from 2 different zones: the lighter zone, which means the sandier soil, and heavier zone, which means heavier texture soil, both from nitrogen banded side and from the grower applied or fertigation side, so that for us to understand that how efficient is banding on a sandier soil versus how efficient is banding when the soil is better. So I don't have the results as of now, but maybe next year or in some other venue, I'll be presenting these results. So this year we were at several farms. We were at 2 locations, 4 different fields with 2 different farms in Hamilton County with Mike Adams and Alex Murphy, and we were at one dairy, 2 fields under one dairy, under Shenandoah Dairy in Suwannee County. Now, the second piece of the puzzle is the cover crops, where corn now is in reproductive phase, and most of the nitrogen is just translocating from vegetative parts to the reproductive parts, and little of nitrogen is being uptaken. So this is that part of the year when your corn is now in the reproductive phase and getting closer to physiological maturity, but we start getting rainfall every day. So any nitrogen now that is in our sandier soils is liable to leach. So what we are trying to do is what we did last year is we retrofitted a seeder unit on the high boy that you can see on the pictures with these flexible hoses, and we connected these to the drop hose. And I'm going to show you how our cover crop seeds were being dispersed from the drop hose. Now, one of the hesitations of our growers is that when corn is mature, the hesitation was to run, that if we run high boy over a mature corn or dried corn crop, that we will be bending corn. So we did this in-house test last year in fall to plant cover crop seed in standing corn before harvesting corn. We wanted to test this in-house before we move out to actual farms. And it would be early next week that we will be using the same technique on an actual farm in Hamilton County. But I want to show you that how we ran high boy and it did not bend corn stalk. Now, and these are some of the pictures from last winter. We had a successful cover crop, coming out of that, planting. So that gave us the confidence that, yes, we can do it. Now, there are several questions that we don't know, or I don't know, for example, how sooner we can plant cover crop under corn canopy, what particular species will grow better than others, what should be the perfect timing, what species would be good for scavenging nitrogen. We don't know that answer. So I have a PhD student here who is in the picture, Sukhveer Pullar. He's working on this, and so this year we have already established some of small plot research to get answers to these questions. So what we ended up doing, since this is small plots, so we ended up broadcasting cover crop seeds, different species in corn, but we did it manually. We did it by hand. So these are just some pictures from the trial. This is on the day when the cover crop seed was broadcasted. And so Sukhveer did his first rating on August 3rd. And after a week, we were amazed to see germination after a week on several of these cover crops that we planted. In general, we saw about 10 to 15% germination after first week on most of the cover crop species. But lab beans were the ones that we noticed that they have started sprouting, but they have not germinated yet, as you can see on the picture on your left-hand side. But apart from that, we are very, encouraged by the results. That's the update from me on the cover crop or on the 4 hours project. On the cover crop side of things, by the end of this year, we'll have enough information on the particular species that grows well under corn canopy, the particular species that is better for scavenging nitrogen, and the timing. So the way we are planting now cover crop under the corn canopy is five weeks before corn harvest, then 4 weeks before corn harvest, then 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and then we'll plant cover crops on the day of corn harvest. So I'll share more information maybe next time. Thank you.